All right, so Evolution 2 is coming up this Sunday. I ain't gonna lie, it caught me by surprise, but it caught everybody by surprise, technically, with all the women. And everybody else that was like, what? We're getting Evolution 2. But the big question that has been going around recently is basically, is it being set up to fail? And I don't really think so. I was like, is it being set up to the expectation that everybody wants? No, not at all. It's not. But is it being set up to fail? One could look at it that way. Just because everybody feel like the storylines are rushed. Some people feel like it's just here to go up against AEW All In. It's sort of here just to give the crowd and women basically something where they can just shut the hell up. There's a whole bunch of things. But the reason I don't really think that's being set up to fail is because I really sort of feel like it's not really too much different than any of the other PLEs. Like PLEs, most of them have two matches that's like, okay, we know we getting this at the next PLE. Then the other one just kind of come as a part of whatever just happens in those weeks. Not necessarily the main ones. And even then. But most of the time, they're sort of pulling, I was like, 3 of them out the ass. And I feel like this is really no different here. To me, the one that they really sort of pulled out of nowhere was Tiffany Stratton, Trish Stratton. Now, I was like, because... And you could have sort of played it off by saying, hey, because you helped me out in that tag team match, I feel like how Cody sort of gave Kevin Owens a title match. You could have sort of gave it a little bit of that, except for it wouldn't be as disrespectful, I feel like, how Kevin Owens would take it versus Trish Stratus. You'd be like, oh, hey, we got a whole new women thing, you coming about, you started this whole I was like, what part of the whole thing? And I was just, you could wrap it up in a bow and make it look nice. But this one was basically just kind of like, eeny, meeny, that person, come on out. And that's what it is. So, with that being said, kind of put yourself in a situation where it's like, oh, that don't feel like it's really worth a damn. I was like, you got Jordan Grace and JC Jane that's from NXT. That one's sort of been building basically since JC won it off of Stephanie Valcourt. Cool. I'm like, that one's been there. Now, if you want to say that's taken away from NXT Great American Bash, that's another conversation in itself of, I was like, another point I didn't put in it, but basically how people feel like they should have got their own weekend. And I was like, just address that one. I think that this is actually kind of fine how it's set up. I think where it comes hurtful is where you don't have the right setup. You don't have the right setup of what you want to actually do. I don't think it necessarily, like how I was talking about, like the storyline, some storylines not being basically made to their full potential, but also I think it's just like if you knew what you wanted to do, that's where I at least understand where I'm just like, it looks like this sort of has just been put together just because it's like, after you get past like 3 of them, it's just kind of like, it is what it is. So, I think it's actually fine if you did do this in, like, say you had Saturday Night Main Event one day and then because I was like, I think it would be foul if they would have did like Saturday Night. I was like, NXT and Saturday Night Main Event are both going to be on the same day. Now, if you did the women's like that, I think that might be doing this service because basically, you having the men all on one, and then you have the women all on another. Whereas like NXT, you can sort of get by with that if you sort of did do it like that. And that kind of, you would sort of make a competition in and of itself that people will try to do, like how they do with the NBA, WNBA, where it's like they trying to compare both of them, and it's like, that's not fair to compare both of them. Like, you're not being genuine when you're trying to compare the two. And that's what that would create there, to be like, because after the women would have a good pay-per-view, they'd be like, yeah, but you see what happened when the men just have nothing but men on there and do excellent or whatever like that. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what we're talking about here. You over here bringing your nonsense here. So, and like, now them having their own weekend, I was like, sure, I don't think that I'm not going against that necessarily either. I'm just saying that this is not necessarily a bad thing that they had a whole weekend of WWE, because if you're gonna watch WWE, you're gonna watch it all. To be honest, you're gonna watch it all. So that's why I don't think it really matters in that sense. But I do think that the other storyline that we have here of Rhea Rip. I was like, this has sort of been one that's sort of been getting on my nerves. It's Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Is that people have been like, that had a build to it. And I'm like, it has. As soon as Rhea lost to Io before WrestleMania, that's been building. Io has always beat Rhea. That's a storyline. Rhea got beat by Io in that triple threat match. Rhea and Io have been having each other back or whatever since WrestleMania. Rhea has been implying to Io, I'm coming for that title since that time. That's been the story. Now, if you want to say they haven't had like the blow off they needed to or whatever, okay. Or just, I don't think it came out of the blue. That's what a lot of people were saying. Like, I was like, no. How some people were talking about of like Io versus Asuka, to me that's out of the blue. Like, yeah, they were former partners in the stable, but there ain't nothing else there. Rhea Ripley makes sense here more. Plus, if you want to have the big show, you have your top people, Io and Rhea. Because Io is effing over, and so is Rhea. Be there. And I was like, they've been building into this. I don't think that's really that hard to get, but people don't really see. I haven't really seen too many people in that frame of argument or whatever. No matter if I'm listening to, like, you know, I mean, and and this is some sort of where I got the from of like Wrestle Talk of talking about Evolution fail. I was like other podcasts as well too. Stephen Larson going in Raw, and also Minnie Portable as well with her frustrations on like the whole women's evolution thing. And while I was like, you know, there's frustrations amongst people, but I was like, I think that it has had a pretty good build. I was like, the triple threat, Becky, Bayley, and Lyra, that's been built. I was like, I felt like the Jade and Naomi, that one's definitely been built. I was like, so that's why the only one that you could sort of say maybe is the tag team match, which I feel like which maybe that was thrown together because Liv got hurt, and because she was going to do something with Nikki, and the number one battle royale or whatever. So, with that being said, I think it feels like it's rushed. Yes. Does it feel like? But I also feel like the good and the bad, that matches that you feel like should have been somewhere, like these seem like SummerSlam matches, they're gonna be here. Like, you got pretty much all your biggest stars. Like, if you wanted like some like 10-match card or something, like that's a lot. And I was like, and I guess this whole thing that would be centered around Liv or whatever, I've seen people that just think that says as like this one, how can this one person destroy this whole event? And I'm like, we see it all the time. The thing is that I feel like this has such a short window that you don't have any really way to pivot. Think about how many types of things we could say, like, oh man, what if or whatever. I'm like, CM Punk being hurt, I feel like changed a little bit at WrestleMania. You know, I'm trying to think a little bit of them off the top of my head or whatever. I was like, Rhea and Liv both sort of being hurt last year. I think what plotted out along that their whole feud that they was having. What's the name? Jimmy and them being hurt when they were trying to bring back the whole old OG bloodline, and how that all felt rushed because people were hurt. You know, hell, I was like, that's how we got Jey Uso being the top person, because Jimmy got hurt those years ago. You know, so I'm like, this year, I was like, but see, those things, like some of those things, I was like, those three things, not necessarily, I was like, those three things sort of were the main focus of things to where I'm like, it did change plan, but they had enough time where they was able to still get this off. If now, granted, this is some WWE problem, that if they would have said something about this 2 months ago and say Liv still got hurt and it's still the shoulder, and so she would still been out, but you would have had at least a month and a half to try to figure out something. Here, you only had like 3 weeks to try to really get something going, but as you see, there's already some of these matches here. So I don't think that the thing is, I don't think that the complaining of Evolution 2 is really at Evolution. I mean, it is, but it's really at WWE as a whole, because nothing has felt or feeling like it got you. And I think that's where Evolution really just sort of lies right now, is that it's just in the midst of everything else that WWE that just isn't hitting. Like this, I feel like for a lot of people should be the thing that it should feel like how like the first one felt. It should feel good. It should feel like, yeah, we're getting something or whatever. Because even if I was like, unless you're just totally on that bottom dweller type of stuff, that even if you're not particularly into all in women wrestling, you can at least be like, oh, okay, they got their own thing, cool, hope it goes good. You can at least be like that type of person, even if you're not going to peer in, even if you're not going to be all the way in. But I was like, but the thing is, I don't think any of this proved that they're really being set up to fail. I don't think that this is also going to be, as I've seen with people, where it's like, this is going to be where they're going to, like Triple H or Nick Khan or whoever, it's going to show, which I also don't think is necessarily them. I was like, because stuff like this is really the higher up people, the people that's like, oh, we're here to try to figure out how to make money all the time. Those are the people that will look like, if Evolution does bad, that it would just be like, I guess women doesn't sell. That would be more of them than it would be on Triple H and Nick Khan, to be honest, because they're just here for all money, and that's their bottom line. Now, I don't think that's how it's being set up. I was like, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Be honest, I think that part is sort of being like jumping over too much. That it's like where it's like they don't care about like the women or whatever like that. Do they give the women as much as they deserve? No, but that's a different argument, saying that they don't care at all. Now I was but so in the end, I don't think they're being set up. I don't think that this is going to stop or hinder them from doing another one. I just think that they just stop and hinder themselves. I don't think it's necessarily like, well, you women can't do it. Obviously, looking at all these, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just them just not doing it. That's all. But in the end, I think they're gonna win. They got Sunday all by themselves. That'll be a chill day, because I was like, most people are out or doing something on Saturday, to where on Sundays there ain't nothing for you to do. I was like, you done stayed up maybe from watching all the wrestling or whatever you were doing. Sunday rolls around, you're just gonna be watching this, and so I think it's gonna be watching. To me, it's not even really going against AEW, to be honest. I was like, they're not even doing that. I was like, it's adjacent, but for those that love wrestling, you're still gonna watch it. I was like, for good or bad, or how you want to say that, I was like, this will get people to watch, for good or for bad. Where it's like you're over here being like, yeah, I'm down for an all women pay-per-view. You'll watch. If you're like, boo, I hate these women, you're gonna still watch. I was like, if you're like, hey, I'm glad they're getting like represented, you're gonna watch. If you're just like, oh, this that woke garbage, you're gonna probably half watch it, then make some malarkey about like, see, you good because I didn't watch it, whatever bullshit you're gonna say. Yeah, so I think it's gonna do numbers. I think it's gonna do good. As far as it being sold, if it sells out or not like that, I was like, look, they got a bigger wide range scope to also see how things go, of like, is it getting viewed and all this other stuff. How do people come back? Word of mouth, if it's good, then you come back and be like, oh man, people really watched it again later on or whatever. it's going to do fine. I was like, it's going to do good. The matches are going to be good. And also, I think this sort of also goes into the what will help them out is the fact that this time alone, I was like, while I really did like the first Evolution, the women talent is a whole lot higher. I was like on Mini Portable that I was like she was doing questions more so than her just going off, but they were talking about like the Linda coming back, and it's like that's a moot point because you're saying Trish Stratus coming back, Nikki Bella coming back, Goldberg coming back in Saturday Night's Main Event, so your argument don't mean anything. That's like, oh, we like why are they coming back? I was like until you get to a point where there's like Evolution 7, or say the women get at least 3 matches on the card or something like that, the Legends are gonna keep coming back because the thing is, and unlike some other things, is that the Legends like Trish Stratus can still wrestle and all the other stuff. You want to give them flowers like present. You don't want to just be like, oh, hey, you really did good to help usher us in. Nah, you're going to let them also participate. Now they got a whole new set of eyes and a different generation. They're actually taking it a little bit more serious. You're also going to let them play as well. So I was like, unlike the men doesn't need Legends to come back. Because I was like, that's really sometimes show. Like when they was bringing back all the veterans a lot of time, that really was showing a poor effort of how they felt about the roster. The women, I'm like, that's not what they're doing here. Like that, like don't get me wrong, when they first were doing like the Rumbles and stuff like that, you just didn't have the amount of women. Now I was like, it's really sort of more just giving them the flower. And you could say like, oh, some of the other women as well too. And I'm like, yeah, you can put them on, but I was like, hey, you don't also have to go overboard. They're going to be a battle royale, and I know how sometimes that's a cop out because they do it a lot with the women. But I also think that I'm like, hey, we've been doing like 5-match cards. That's what this is. I was like, guess what? The women that come around, they'll be fine. You want to try to get the past and the present at the same time. The only thing I was like, other than the battle royale, I get the tag team match because they let it go of so many women that could participate in this. I was like Meta, I was like Shayna and Zoe before she got hurt, or Sonya and Shayna, the Party Girls, Shotzi and their group with was it Deadly or Toxic Attraction. You had enough. Like now, it's just kind of like we don't really care. And then the women that you sort of do got a tag team, we don't really care. That's kind of how it feels. It really just feels like they're going to be Charlotte and Alexa. I was like, I don't know if it's time that I was like that. We have any of the other ones, but Roxanne and Raquel, who I think will win. Yeah. So I was like, been kind of winded, I guess, of doing all this, but I was like, I don't think they're being set up to fail. I was like, but I think they will see the expectations like they always do. I think the match will be great. I think the build has been. I think the build has been good for nearly all the matches. I think Liv Morgan did change up how much they probably want to do Rampant, because, like I said, all those other matches have builds in some form. That if you would have had this, that might have been a stamp on it. Now, I will say, the thing that they're going to have to pull the Rock out their ass. And I'm talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but I'm not talking about littering. I'm talking about how he saved WrestleMania last year, how he got the pop needed for Elimination Chamber. You're going to have, I feel like, the big one we all know is AJ Lee. Do I think she's going to show up? I don't know. But she's the big fish. Other minor ones, I feel like that could get a pop, because I was like, we're trying to get a pop. And yes, there's going to be a difference between the live crowd and the IWC, and that's also split in the factions. But I do think if they popped out with a Paige, I think that could work. Gail Kim, I think that could work. I was like, you're gonna need something. You're gonna need something like that. That might happen in the battle royale, cause that's just sort of what happened. But you sort of need something that's gonna be like, oh, I was like, I didn't really expect this. Cause I think they do hear enough that they'll know that it's like, we gotta do something that's going to have them be satisfied, even if we were shit. It's you know what? It's almost like you and your girl having a really big fight the whole week, but you come through on Valentine's Day. Not the whole year that you've been garbage, but at least that week. You know, I was like that Valentine's Day is a cop out for some of y'all or whatever like that. You know, or you and your kid been getting into it all the, you know, a whole bunch or whatever, but you take off that weekend and you're just like, hey, you want to go to the fair? And it's just like, all right, okay, we go to the fair. You cool again, Dad? That from that perspective. Anyway, I'm like, you heard me ramble on enough. Do you think that Evolution is set up to fail? Do you think it will fail? How you felt about the Bills? Let me know. Anything you want to pop out. I might have missed something in this whole thing. But until then, see you for a crazy ass weekend. Peace. I'm out.